Every time the Major League Baseball meets with the Players Association, it gets worse. You think there's going to be progress? There's not. Now, MLB has called the courts in to try to mediate between them immediately. We're losing time in the season. I think the question right now is how much time are we going to lose, and what are the long-term effects on baseball because of this?
I Mills, maybe I'm being crazy here,
You're
but I
not.
feel like we're not getting I feel like we're not getting baseball back until June. Like it's not as simple as obviously like signing, agreeing to the deal, right? The negotiations take obviously a little period of time there, but I think even with that, then you have to ramp up, you have to get spring training sort of involved, you have to get guys sort of reporting, all that stuff. I don't see how they're going to go from literally not having any productive conversations now to being good by April. Maybe mid late May, but it feels like to me this is a June start with where they are right now, and I
God.
don't even know if I feel confident about that.
I, I'm going to be real with you. If it doesn't start till June, they might as well just call themselves the third most important sport. And I'll never put them over hockey. No offense, hockey fans. I don't think that it's that far down. I mean, NASCAR beat the NHL All Star Game this weekend or this past weekend, but they might as well just sit themselves down under the NBA as the not only the sport that is going to be the lower rated sport, but the sport making the worst decisions. I don't blame the players here. I don't blame the owners. I don't side one side or the other here. I know a lot of people, pay the players. The owners are billionaires. MLBPA is the strongest union in the world. Okay, let me repeat that. Above all the steam fitters unions, every union you've ever heard of, MLBPA is the strongest union, and they screwed themselves over by acquiescing every single time there's been a labor issue recently. They just want to get through it and get done, so they go ahead and say, oh, no, go ahead. This is going to be the time where you see just how important these issues are to the players. The Players Association, this is going to be the time they don't back down, and this is going to be the time that it's going to hurt the fans even more. Okay, last time we had a home run chase, steroid fueled or not, call it whatever you want, that brought fans back to the yard after that 94 strike season. This time you're coming back off a season, or you're a season away from not having any fans in the stand due to the pandemic. You're coming off lower attendance across the league, lower TV ratings. They were just getting everything back. They literally were on the uptick. Okay, the lower ratings and all were going away. They were going away. The let the kids play movement was working.
Yep.
And you're going to ruin all of that, because everybody wants more money.
And I 100% hear you. I think previous negotiations for the MLBPA had sort of, to your point earlier, like just not taking things as seriously, not really bargain the way they should have probably bargained for what players essentially needed, and now they're paying the price by needing a much larger jump to feel what the Players Association feels is more fair. But I just know it's baseball is one of the weirdest sports. I know it's hard because there's small markets across every single sport, and it's like baseball players that make it to the major leagues, they need 6 years of MLB service before they can actually become a free agent, right? And so that's why you see if a player comes out of high school, goes to college, gets drafted, spends a couple of years in the minor leagues, it might be 24 if they're at even a younger age at 24 when they're actually, if they're not a superstar, right? We're talking about 24 years old
Right.
coming into being a rookie. They spend 6 years in the major leagues, assuming they don't get demoted at all at that point. They spend 6 years in the majors. They now are 30, and now they can be a free agent. Whereas you look at the NBA, where guys come in, they're 19 years old if they're a really good player. They spend, I think it's a 4-year contract for an NBA player at that point. Now you're 23 hitting free agency for the very first time.
Yeah.
So think about MLB free agency and how many superstars really go into that versus the NBA when you're like, oh my God, they just got such and such young player on a massive deal. Or even the NFL, right? Guys come in 21, I guess you could be 20, but 21, 22, when those guys come in, they have a 4-year, maybe 5-year contract. They're still in their mid 20s for a lot of these guys when they're actually going in to be a free agent. MLB has an older shift. A lot of times players burn out very quickly in the MLB. It's not very easy to stay in the major leagues as well unless you are one of those upper tier players. So
Right.
it's a tough conversation I think across the board, but I just don't feel confident we have baseball before June. And to your point, it's like that's going to do an insane amount of damage for them, I think, long term, even more so than what we saw maybe prior.
I agree with the players getting the earlier free agency, but I want you to remember something here. The players already have guaranteed contracts. If they're cut, they get paid in full, which is something that no other league has. I lie.
Right.
The NBA technically has that, but you can get around that in the NBA. They get the largest amount of money because of salary cap. There is no salary cap in baseball. So, and
Also, no salary floor.
there's
So,
also no salary floor.
yeah.
Tampa Bay. I agree with that. I think there should be a salary floor. I know this is going to sound crazy. I kind of want to see a salary cap in baseball. I think it's worked for other sports, and I think it would make the sport. While I do think the NFL is more mediocre than it is competitive, I would like to see baseball get on a more competitive standpoint as opposed to just revenue sharing. But whatever they do, if this lockout goes into the season, I'm with you, man. I think they're going to do irreparable damage. Whereas before it wasn't irreparable. I think they repaired a lot of it. This is irreparable damage in this day and age. I just don't know how they're going to continue with that.